Hi, I'm Roxanne Bradley. Welcome to the Denver Metro Specialized Education Support for Parents Meetup. These recordings were made during our meetups held in the 2019-2020 school year. Please understand that we are not experts at using the technology and overlook our shortcomings. We hope that this information will be useful to you as you support children with learning differences.
So just give your first name so that nobody knows who you are. And then just say if you have kids or why you're here and what's your biggest concern about the start of school. And we'll start with Stephanie.
Hi, I'm Stephanie. I have two kiddos, age 14 and 13. My biggest worry about starting school is my son has moved to a new school. He's now in high school, and trying to make sure that his teachers and the administration follow the plan that's in place and have his best interests at heart.
Okay. Mary, do you want to go next?
I'm Mary. I have two children. My biggest concern would be morning routine to get to school on time and bedtime routine so they get enough sleep.
Gotcha.
And motivation for doing homework.
Always a big one. And then we have Lori here with us. So Lori, can you speak? Laura, sorry, Laura. Speak loud.
Hi, I'm Laura, and I'm a foster mom, and so I don't have kiddos in the home right now, but school has been really tough all around, what Mary said, plus, so I'm excited to have some guidance.
Good. So so that was Laura. She's a foster mom, doesn't have kids right now, but has all the same concerns everybody else did. Okay, so the last person is Jenny. Jenny, can we hear you? I can't hear you, Jenny. Can you type something in the chat and tell us who you are in chat?
Can you hear me now?
Oh, yes, I can. Yay. Go.
There's a whole little conference button with chat, and audio just disappeared on me. So I have two kids. We're kind of dabbling in 504s for my oldest, so figuring out how to navigate that and how to get things started and have a successful kind of first step kind of with the school district. Such as what I'm interested in.
Okay, welcome.
And her
What's your concern, Jenny?
I think just navigating the system mostly.
Okay, navigating the system.
How do we set it up well? How do we kind of get the needs met?
Okay. And Jenny and Mary, are you guys in the Denver metro area or outside the Denver metro area?
I'm in Denver Metro.
Okay.
I'm Denver Metro.
Okay. I just want to know because we have had people from like Glenwood Springs or whatever, and that just helps if I have information for them. So I can provide, or Barb has information or whatever. So the next thing we do is our topic presentation. So we're starting a little bit early, which is great. That means we'll have a little bit more time to talk and say hi. So basically, we have a privacy agreement. So share as much of your story and your child as you feel comfortable sharing. And then after the presentation, share only the story and not any identifying information. And of course, since we're recording, no identifying information is great, like school districts and things like that. And because we found that stories are just so powerful to help other parents and to share stories and make a community, which is what we would hope to build here. Any questions?
No?
Just yell out if you have a question. Okay, so since Barb and I are the speakers today and we're the ones that run the meeting, we're going to introduce ourselves. So I'm Roxanne Bradley, and I'm a special education advocate. I help parents navigate the special education system to get the supports that their children need. So 504s, IEPs, ALPs, and other stuff. There's some other stuff I've done, like help with a bullying situation, even though the kid's not on an IEP. So just education problems, I guess you can say. K through 12, though, I don't go past the 12th grade. I have information, but that's way beyond what I want to do. And I've been doing this, doing it for my kids since 1999, for pay since 2013. Yeah. Want to talk about your kids a little bit? Oh, my kids. I have 2 kids, both adopted, both with special needs. We are both adopt parents. My son had, both my kids had reactive attachment disorder, which is the inability to bond. And we got that pretty well. They're both considered in remission. My son he has ADHD, fairly severe. He quit all his medication, joined the Army. He's now a medic. My success story. He finally figured out. He's also quite exceptional. So he's brilliant, but he didn't ever figure out how his brain worked until he got in the Army and they made him. So that's cool. My daughter has severe mental health issues, a lot of learning disabilities, but also she's out also on the spectrum, so she has. So we're still supporting her a great deal.
I'm Barb Taylor, and I'm actually a special education teacher that became a special education director. I worked in public schools, but I also went in Colorado, we have these things called facility schools that are approved by Colorado Department of Education, and they are residential day treatment and hospital programs that are private agencies, but we band together and we use similar curriculum, and we're all on the same IEP system, so kind of a loose association. And that has pretty much been my world since like 95. I did a little stint at the Division of Youth Services, which is the Lost Juvenile Program, so the juvenile justice, and then I've done a lot of work in the Denver Health Adolescent Psych Unit, so it's kind of that conduct disorder, SED, social emotional, and then a lot of mental health. So that's kind of my background. I now own my own company for about 10 years, and I contract out to the facility. So if you guys want anything with facilities, feel free to look me up and contact me.
Our topic today is don't get caught unprepared. We thought that as you're going into the new school year, that sometimes it's like, and you forgot something, or how do I go about doing this? And then all of a sudden the teacher comes up and you're like not ready for that. So we thought that we would talk about that today. And there you go, learning objectives.
So we just want to set a plan for the school year, and we're going to go over 504s, ALPs, and IEPs. And so we'll just have some tips in there. So just to plan it out.
And then how to organize. So it's good to have a plan, but you also have to organize to make that be successful. So we'll talk about that as we go through each of the ones, like what to pull together, what documents to have, things like that.
And determine when and why to meet with the school. So the timelines that might be helpful, and then the why. So if this happens, and you guys may have your own scenarios, feel free to share those, but we'll kind of go over that.
And then monitor your child's success through progress reports. So one of the things that has happened with the Andrew F. case, which I don't know if you're all familiar, but Douglas County got sued, and it went to the Supreme Court, and the parents won. And basically it was, we used to have a standard that a child only had to learn the minimum. So you had the minimum learning. And now they're saying the Supreme Court said, no, it has to be based on the child's ability to learn, not on their minimal, which means you have to constantly keep track of their progress and determine how they can learn and grow at the rate that is appropriate for that person. So progress reports should be starting to change in some of the school districts this year. We're hearing rumblings that things might start to change, but we're going to give you some questions that you can ask to help motivate them to give you the right information. That work? So 504s is the first thing we're going to go over. So does everybody know what a 504 is?
Yes.
That's Mary.
Yes.
Jenny, do you know what a 504 is?
I feel like I know enough to say that it's similar to an IEP.
Yes.
Medical based. And that's what we should be pursuing. But to be honest, I don't really know that I could say what it is.
Okay, so just a quickly thing, the difference is, the basic differences. 504 is under the Disabilities Act, and the IEP is under the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act. So two different laws, both came out of disability, IDEA came out of Disabilities Act. So they're both, but there's different processes for arguing is one of the big differences between them. The 504, if something happens under that, it goes through civil rights. If it's under IDEA and the IEP, then it goes through the IDEA process, which is separate from the civil rights process. So that's one big difference. The other difference, typically the schools follow, is that a 504 is for accommodations only. It doesn't have to be, but typically that's what they do. And an IEP is if you think your child needs educational special services. So either that's through, let's say if your child has dyslexia, you need a reading specialist to help them. Or if they have mental health issues, you need a psychologist to work with them. So it can be a special education issue and or a related service. But it has to be specialized services under the IDEA. And also the IDEA and IEP have goals, and the 504 does not.
And the special ed is funded minimally, but it's funded, and the 504 is an unfunded mandate. So sometimes you'll run into that.
Okay. Any other questions? Any questions on that? Okay. We can't see, so you got to yell at us.
Mary doesn't have any questions.
Okay. Thanks, Mary. So first thing is to look at the date of the 504 plan and remind the school to schedule the meeting. So on every 504 plan, if you already have one, there will be a date, then they review it annually. And so you want to look at that date on the 504 plan and see when it's time for renewal. And then just like if the renewal date is in May, you don't need to remind the school now, but in April, remind the school that you want to do that.
And or if ever you change to a new school or like even a new class, if it's elementary and it's changed into a new class, you can also have a 504 and just talk to that new teacher and just make sure that they're aware that there is a 504.
Right. I think we've got that coming up. There you go, Barbara, right into it. Share the current 504 with each child's teacher and ask questions. This is specific, especially, I shouldn't say specifically, especially true in middle school and high school where you have multiple teachers because they don't always put everybody in the loop, especially special teachers. But yeah, what Barb was saying is to make sure that they have it. So that's something you want to do right away.
Proactively.
Yeah. And if your child is going into college, then the IEP does not follow them. They have to switch it to a 504. And after the age of, well, once they graduate from high school, which could be 18 to 21, then they need to go to the disabilities department at the college and say that they have a 504 and get the appropriate support through the disabilities office at the college. Right. But they don't do that until after they're accepted. Nobody needs to know until after a kid is expected. So I'll give you some hints for after. Okay, so when you share your information with the teacher, it's always good to just ask a few questions.
So have you ever worked with a child with this particular disability? It could be asthma. It could be somebody that has a situational need where, the child needs to have access to water and or the bathroom pretty regularly. What situations have you dealt with?
Could be a child with anxiety that it's really hard to tell when they're stressing out and not paying attention in the classroom. And so, it's giving them the hints if they're staring off to space, if they're whatever. Or if you have a child with ADHD and really needs to have fidget toys or walk around the classroom, some of those others,
Run errands.
If you have a child with ASD, autism, it could be, again, making errands, but carrying heavy things. So you get proprioceptive input, or they may need to go to the sensory room if they're getting dysregulated. So there's lots of different things that come in with depending on what the disability is. So the other one is, do you have any concerns about teaching your child? So I know my daughter was diagnosed with bipolar disorder very young, and so I would always go in with information about bipolar disorder and what it was and how what were the best ways to work with her. The other thing is I have a client who has a child with Down syndrome, and she provides a letter to the school, a letter for all the parents in the child's classroom.
Oh, nice.
And that letter explains what Down syndrome is, how it's a condition, it's not the child, what the child's interests are, and she's gotten a lot of positive comments from the other parents. And it's like, these are questions you'll get from your children that are in class with her, so this is how you can answer them. So it's a really cool thing that she does.
That's very nice.
Yeah. Have anything else? Share your prior experiences and your concerns about them happening again. So I have a client right now whose son fell on a school trip and broke his hip. He's very unstable walking because he already had orthopedic issues, and so she's really afraid he's going to fall again. So that would be an experience you want to go and share with the teachers to make sure that they're aware of what's going on. The special ed teacher may know, or the 504 coordinator. Like if you have a child that breaks a leg and they're on a emergency 504, so the time that they've got a broken leg and they're in a wheelchair or whatever, it's still good to talk to the teachers about what your concerns might be. Okay.
Let me see. I did think about one. Oh, a lot of times bullying will come into this particular one because it's ADHD or just something that's a little bit different.
There's somebody that's moving a bunch of stuff around. If you can mute until you ask this question, that helps because we're getting a lot of noise. If that's okay.
Oh, there you go.
Thanks.
So, if anything is just a little bit different, then the kids will make fun of them, and so you get that bullying. And the student could have a traumatic experience earlier in their life, and so that would be a good thing to share. Maybe the student isn't willing to answer questions or participate in class, like if they have a stutter or something because of their perception.
Right. So you might have other questions and things you want to talk with teachers about based on whatever the disability is or your experiences. And that's a good time to do it. And then you want to make sure that all the information, including accommodations, is meeting your child's needs and up to date. So let's say over the summer, your child, they're on a 504. One of their things is that they need to walk around the room on a regular basis. And maybe over the summer, they found out that really that's not what they needed to do. That maybe a better thing to keep them focused was to have earbuds and have some music playing on a regular basis or whatever. That's a good time to say, okay, maybe I need to have a meeting, or please go through the 504, and mark up where there might be stuff.
Well, and a lot of times with accommodations, many people, whoever the team is, they are like, oh, all of this whole list of accommodations has helped before. Well, we don't want to get rid of anything, so they just copy it and copy it and copy it forward. And a lot of times they are out of date, or it is something that really doesn't help the child, or it's something that sets the child off just because of the child maturing. And so you just want to make sure that the things that are on there are up to date. Mm-hmm.
So again, if they're not up to date, then request a 504 meeting. And then make sure you have the following information available. You could get a new diagnosis over the summer. It could be that now with ADHD, you have a diagnosis of anxiety or whatever. And so it's always good, and provide a letter from the MD if possible.
A concussion could be a good one here, because the child, it could be during the summer, the child could fall or have a bike wreck. They could get a concussion. We don't know how it's going to manifest in the school, but so it's always good just to let teachers know.
Also, any medication changes. So again, if something changed, especially if you want them, well, yes, especially if you want them to look out for side effects. There's all kinds of different kinds of side effects that show up later, not necessarily always when you start taking the meds. So it's always good to let the school know if there's any medication changes.
And new behaviors and or skills exhibited. So like, again, over the summer, hormones could come into place. They could have had an accident somewhere, and they had that concussion, or they could be, before they were always acting out, now they're more withdrawn, or vice versa. And if it's a new teacher, that new teacher won't be able to know that student before to do a comparison. So you just want to make them aware of that.
Okay, and I think Mary or Jenny, I forget which one, was looking at a new 504. Jenny, did you have any questions that we could answer about 504s?
I think that's helpful as insight.
Okay, good. And if it's about getting your child on one, a couple of quick steps here is find out who the 504 coordinator is. Give a call to them and say, I think my child needs to be on a 504. I'd like to hold a 504 meeting. Send them an email in writing, an email that states that, so that you have a written confirmation that you sent it. And then they should set up a 504 meeting. And then when you go, again, have about the same stuff we just listed. Okay? And some accommodations or things that you know work to help your child be successful. So if that's fidget, toys, a quiet box, walk around the room, proprioceptive, sensory needs, whatever, you can bring that to the meeting. Laura just asked if you asked the prior teacher for recommendations. If the prior teacher worked really well with your child, sure. Yep, ask for recommendations or ideas. Or they'll probably have some that they've already passed on to the new teacher if they work together, but it's still, sometimes what ends up happening in a 504 meeting is they go, well, we're doing all this already. And you go, yep, but I want it documented because I might move, and this is a federal law, and I might go to another school that doesn't do these things. So it's always good to have it in writing, and then legally you're covered also. So if there's a problem, then you can escalate on a legal basis too. So Laura just asked if it works differently for 504s where they say we don't have the funding for that. Typically, with accommodations, there's not a lot of funding needed because it's something the teacher can do in the classroom. So that shouldn't be an issue. You might have, there are some charter schools, especially, that will use that as a statement. It's really against the law to say that, but they will state it, but they're really supposed to meet the needs of the child. Now, that stated, not every school has to meet every need of every child. The way it's set up is, let's say, it's easy to pick autism, so that's kind of a big one. But like a child has severe or moderate autism, they're going to set up a center program in their school district, maybe 2 or 3 of them, and they would prefer your child to go to a school that has the resources. So then they have a sensory room. They're used to working with kids with autism. The teachers have been trained, blah, blah, blah. They can't do that in every school. It's too expensive. So that's what they try to do. Therefore, charter schools don't have to meet all those needs because they're a choice school. So therefore, they might say, we can't meet that need. If those are the kinds of needs you meet, you're better off going to.
So the district has to provide the continuum, not necessarily every single school.
Okay, so let's say quiet box or whatever. If you supply a cardboard box, like they couldn't say, oh, we can support that.
Right. So Laura's asking if you supply something that the child needs, then they can't say that they can't support it. That's true.
Okay.
So by a quiet box, what I meant was, no, that's a good question. It's a box. Sometimes I call them quiet boxes because they have fidget toys. They might have writing tools. They have stress balls. They have lots of things that help quiet the child down. And we don't want to call it a stress box. We want to call it something a little more.
Make the kids stress.
Right. Quiet. But that's what I'm talking about. But if you need a squeeze machine, Temple Grandin uses squeeze machines, if you know who she is, and you provide a squeeze machine, that might be something that you could say, well, as long as they have a squeeze machine, X many minutes a day, 5 days a week, and they go, well, we don't want everybody to see them in it, so if we put it here, well, that's, so you just have to negotiate. Okay.
You can stand up for yourself.
Yeah. Oh, sure.
Definitely.
Oh, definitely. Yeah. You are part of the team.
Your voice needs to be heard.
Right. Now, 504s, legally, they are not required to have parents present at a 504 meeting, but by practice, everybody does. Yeah. So, Jenny, Mary, any other questions there?
This is Mary. No other questions.
Okay. Any significant changes at home? So, if you move, that's a huge change.
There's a divorce.
New baby in the family, new foster child, adoption, all kinds of different things happen at home that you think that you should probably let the school know, because there could be something where the child gets triggered or gets acted out and you don't even know that that's a problem. But if they know that there's something very significant happening, then they're aware of the situation. Anything else? Okay, on to advanced learning plans. So we are one of the few states in the U.S. and territories that has legislated that children who are gifted need to be supported by the schools. So it doesn't have to be totally academic. There's 10 areas or something, or 10 or 12 areas of giftedness. So music, leadership, creativity, of course, academics, sports, dance. Those are all areas that a child can be gifted in. And once it's identified by the school, then they should be put on an advanced learning plan. And the advanced learning plan then has goals to help support them enhance their giftedness.
It's specific for their giftedness. So if they have a disability of some kind, then they would have an IEP and they would be twice exceptional.
Or a 504.
Or a 504. Yeah. So the ALP is specific for giftedness.
Yeah. But they use now with them, they also have an effective needs goal, because they found that most kids who have some area of giftedness also have some kind of social emotional issue. If you're really, really smart, sometimes you have really poor social skills. If you're a really good dancer, maybe you don't know how to associate with people who aren't, those kind of things. So they always have an effective needs goal now. Are you watching time?
Yep.
Long?
You better be moving.
Sorry. Got to go faster. Sorry. So again, look at the date. So some of these will sound familiar, right? Look at the date and remind the school to schedule a meeting. Again, it's a yearly thing. So there should be a date on the form. I'm just going to kind of go through this one. I'm going to go through this one. This is not typically one we hear. Well, I know one of you had a kid on the ALP. Share current ALP with child teachers and ask questions. Again, you want to make sure that they know what's going on. And then also ask what training you've had with gifted and 2E students. A lot of times we think that even like there's a gifted program at the school that all the teachers are trained, and that's not necessarily so.
And 2E is twice exceptional.
Right. So that's if you have a disability and you're gifted. So my son was considered twice exceptional. He was brilliant. Hyper. Have you worked with a child with these areas of strength? So, have you worked with somebody that's an amazing dancer or amazing musician or whatever? And how does that impact? Well, maybe they have to go to ballet lessons, and so 3 times a week, they're now going 5 times a week. And so they have to leave at 3 o'clock every day. So how do we work that into the schedule, et cetera? Have you worked with a child with these disabilities of 2E? So the combination can kind of be different. You might have a child that's like off the charts and brain power, but can't write a sentence. So those can be so dichotomous to the teachers that they don't know how to cope with it. Right? They're expecting the A and they get D, and they're like, wait, this kid should be just blowing it out, and they're not. How do you intend to support my child's area of strength and effective needs? So it's always good to see what their plan is. Do they have a plan? Maybe they haven't even thought about it. So this is a good way that you trigger them to think about how they're going to support your kid. Stephanie, you want to add anything to that, since I know you have a 2E kid too? Oh, we're lost. Did we lose Stephanie?
I'm here.
You were muted.
Right on the head. That's the kiddo.
Did you say it was okay, or did you have anything to add?
No, I said that's pretty much it, right on the head. That's
good.
Right for me.
Super. And then again, the same thing as with the 504. Review the ALP. Determine if the goals are aggressive in moving your students forward in designated areas of giftedness. Sometimes they get a little lazy on all of these, and so you might have a goal that says, be able to write a story. Well, what does that mean? Is it creative writing they're trying to focus on, and he's gifted in that, or he's not gifted in creative writing and they're trying to increase that because he's a good writer? But you got to understand why the goals are what they are and how they move forward the giftedness. And so again, if not, request an ALP meeting and make sure you have examples of any new behaviors. They might, be doing great in some area. Maybe they got tutoring over the summer in something and something's better, or something's not doing well. Examples of new skills.
Might have gone to a camp of some kind.
Yeah. Significant changes in abilities in her schedule. So again, the dancing thing, if you have to now do more dancing. Oops, that was the last one. So that's ALP. We did that kind of fast. We could move on to IEP, so we don't run out of time.
Any questions about ALPs?
Okay. All right. So again, in the first few weeks of school, guess what we're going to do? But on this one, you got to look at 2 dates.
Right.
Next review meeting and next eligibility meeting. So if the eligibility meeting comes after the review meeting in the same school year, talk to school about combining the processes for both. And we can send you copies of the slides. You don't have to write them all down. I'm just watching Laura madly write. We'll send you copies of the slides. So here's an example from an IEP. So the next eligibility meeting date is August 31st, 2019. And the next review meeting is October 4th, 2018. So it's in the same school year. There's quite a few months between. One is right before maybe school even starts or right at the beginning. So they're going to definitely want to move that one because that's like a hard date to meet for the school. in terms of, because eligibility means redoing the evaluation process, where the review meeting is just reviewing the IEP. So you could have it, because these are so far apart, you could have it where you do the review meeting on the IEP, but then ask for the eligibility meeting to be moved up to the next school year, maybe in October, so that it's a little bit later than what it is. They're going to probably want to move it the other direction, so it's in the same school year. However, you want to be careful on that, depending, especially if it's a transition year, because if your child is close to maybe getting off the IEP, they might push to have them off.
Before they start at the next school.
Before they start at the next school. So let's say they're transitioning from grade school to middle school. I would like the most supports in place when they hit middle school, because it's a tough transition.
Yes.
If they take them away too soon, you're going to have to maybe reintroduce them all over again. So that's why the dates are important to look at to see where they are. Now you could have that the date is, the next eligibility meeting, let's say, is November, and the review meeting is the 10th. So then they would pull them both up and put them in like October. And so you only have to have one rewrite of the IEP.
Right.
Which, if possible, you only want to rewrite the IEP once in the school year and just make amends the rest of the time.
Yes.
Barb's like, yeah.
It's a lot of work.
Yeah. If you do it right.
Yeah, that's right.
So again, if only a review meeting is due, remind the school to schedule a meeting. So if the eligibility date was 2020 and the review meeting was like 2019, then there's only one meeting that year, right? It's just an annual update to the IEP. So then you just have to remind them about one meeting. Did that help? Clarify dates? Any questions on dates? Dates are the hardest thing.
I'm helpless at dates. So I'm going to be reviewing that slide.
Yeah. And call if you have questions on dates. We're either Barb or I, either one would be happy to help. Request drafts of IEPs and evaluation reports 1 week before scheduled meetings. So encourage the school to not do, okay, on October 10th, we're going to review the evaluation and we're going to write the IEP. And we're going to spend 30 minutes doing that. That's impossible. Nobody can do that. So an evaluation is usually between 10 and 20 pages long, and it is not usually great information. Otherwise, you wouldn't have a child on an IEP. It's difficult information, and it's also difficult to read. It's emotionally difficult and intellectually challenging. So you want to have some time to review the evaluation report before you have the meeting. And then also for any, the 504 you can usually do in the meeting because it's not usually that long. But the IEP, you want to make sure you get a copy again a week before the meeting so you can review it. And so you are prepared for the meeting. You don't want to go in where they've reviewed it, they know it all, and you know nothing. Because you're at a disadvantage, right? And you want to make sure that there's space between the evaluation meeting and the IEP. So if you get the evaluation report of week 1, then you got the evaluation meeting week 2. Then they give you a copy of the draft IEP maybe 2 weeks later, and then a week after that you go to the IEP meeting. Okay? Does that make sense? So if it's a transition year, we talk about that. Make sure the eligibility is completed in the fall at the new school. This is my new recommendation based on what happened this year. Because sometimes schools want to make changes based on current environment without taking the new environment into account. So if you have a kid, especially a kid with anxiety, they may have figured out middle school. And so their last year in middle school, they're cruising. They got their buds, they got their schedule, they know what's going on. But the step into high school freaks them out.
Yep.
So it's better to encourage the school to do the transition, the eligibility meeting after the transition, so that those teachers can see what your child needs. You may not get it, but you can always request it.
Well, and if they do the eligibility, you know, like in the middle school, at the end of middle school, even when they get to high school, you can request another eligibility or IEP review. You don't have to wait the entire year, or when it's due, you can always request one because you are part of that team.
And then share again, once you have one, share the current IEP with the child's teacher. Again, this is really important in middle school and high school, and especially in this area because schools don't typically tend to give teachers full copies of IEPs. They give them the goals, the accommodations, it's called a snapshot or a summary, but all teachers should have a full copy so that they can understand the reasons why your child has these goals and accommodations.
And parents can always give those out, even if it's a particular school and the administration says no for whatever reason, parents can always give them out.
Do you recommend, since it's 20 pages, do you recommend doing kind of like something between the snapshot and the full one, or do you recommend doing the full one so they'll read it?
I usually did the full one, but then I had a really complicated kid. If you have a kid that has, let's say, dyslexia, and that's their major disability, the summary might be just fine. Okay? But if you have a kid that has fairly complex needs, and they need, so let's say, for instance, one of the accommodations is, and this is 504 or IEP, the accommodation is that the child needs to have preferential treatment, seating, or strategic seating. Well, you can get that because the child's hard of hearing. You can get it because they have ADHD. You can get it because of lots of reasons. Because they can't see well, but if they don't know why they have that accommodation, then they can't make intelligent decisions as to where to seat them, right? Yep. So it might be that they're better off at the back of the room where there's less distraction than at the front of the room, right? Depends on the class, right? So that's why it's important, I think, for all that information. And legally, they're supposed to get it. Yes. So again, and then we ask the same question as we did before. Have you ever worked with a child with this disability? Do you have any concerns about teaching my child? Again, we have that whole thing. Yep. Share your prior experiences. We said that before. And then you may make sure all information is meeting your child's needs and is up to date. We talked about that. So request an IEP meeting if that's not true. Do diagnosis letter, again, medication changes, behaviors or skills exhibited, significant changes in home. Oh, notes on any needed IEP changes. So as you're doing that, go through and note in the IEP what changes need to get made, okay? And that way you're prepared when you do the annual, you get a draft copy, you can see if those have been included. Progress reports. I had a client that let me use this. Came straight out of an IEP. It's not a well-written goal, but it is a goal. It's not atypical from what you'll see in an IEP. You have the area of need, which is reading. You have the projected achievement date, which is November 26th of this year. You have measurement, which is not written correctly. That should be percentile or percentage. And percentage of what? Percentage correct, percentage of trials, percentage of whatever. Baseline data points, that's where they are now. So they're saying 60% something correct, whatever. I don't know what it is because they didn't write it down. I mean, we'll read this, but they should write it up there. And then they're going to evaluate it based on focused assessments. And then the goal is, when given unknown vocabulary words, students will demonstrate comprehension by utilizing a dictionary source to define words and correctly match the definition to words on assessments with 80% accuracy in 4 out of 5 tries. So basically 80% of 80%. So they should be giving them at least 5 times within the quarter to see if they can meet this goal, right? It shouldn't be 5 times in a year, but it should be 5 times in a quarter because they get quarterly progress reports, right? So this is what the first progress report had for this goal, which obviously was set up in November 2018, right? So December, sorry, let me move that. December 2018. Progress made. I'm just going to read it. It's pretty weird. We worked on this goal in language arts with a recent evaluation regarding organizational patterns. Student did well on the test with a few prompts. Continued practice for next quarter to monitor progress. Student has done a great job catching up on work after she was gone due to illness. What do you guys think? Laura says she doesn't think they read the goal. Mary, Jenny, Stephanie, you got any comments?
It doesn't sound like it to me either.
Doesn't sound like it's you either. Okay.
I said it sounded like a report card comment, not specific to any, specific to a language arts class, but not specific to any goal anywhere.
I think they just thought the goal was reading.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. Stephanie or Jenny, you got any comments?
I would just say it looks like we are glossing over what the goal is. We're trying to make it seem as though we're working on it, and we're not adding any detail that you might actually have a question on.
Right here. Yeah. Jenny, you got anything?
I agree.
Yeah. Yeah. When I read it, I went, oh, they decided the progress report was due. Oh, I haven't done anything. Let's see what I can write down based on the class she was in.
Well, the goal is reading.
Yeah. Exactly. So, so basically, if you get a progress report like this from the school, what should you do?
What would you do?
Yeah, what would you do? Anybody can answer.
Call and make an appointment.
Exactly. Okay. And what would you ask them?
Show me what actually went into meeting the goal here of increasing knowledge of vocabulary words and demonstrating the ability to use them. Show me what you did to work on that.
Right. So that's a really, did everybody hear that? So show them what you've done to work on it. One thing you can ask for is the list of unknown vocabulary words.
Yeah, what'd you work on?
It says when given unknown vocabulary words. Well, what words did you give them and how many trials did you go, right? Anybody else? So basically, we want to hold them accountable, right?
Mm-hmm.
So
yes.
What I'm recommending now, because this happened to me this year, and before, pretty much everybody kind of ignored progress reports because this is what you got. And now with Individualized, we're paying a whole lot more attention to them, which is great. So it made Barb and I go, oh, we should probably talk about that. Right. So one of the things that I'm talking about is one of the things is when you're in an IEP meeting and they're setting the goals, ask them, okay, when are you going to do these trials? Are you going to do 5 trials a month, 5 trials a quarter, 5 trials a year? What do you think it's going to take so that we know that this goal can be met?
Well, and the other thing is it has a baseline on it at 60%. So down here, if progress has been made, at the least they should have another baseline, a new baseline that needs to be above the 60% of where they were. And then just
so like on the last test we gave them, they got, or 72. We gave them 4 trials, and on each trial this is what they got: 62, 63, 70. Oh, we're really starting to make some progress, right? But if they're not testing to find out where the child is, they don't know where the child is.
Like all the info above, when is that written? Or
the part at the top under the goal, that's in the IEP. And typically what's repeated in the progress report is just the goal.
Okay. And so
you have to go back to the IEP to look at what the baseline was.
And the IEP was like area of need. That's like it's standardized. Okay.
Yeah. This is the standard format using the software that almost everybody uses, which is called Enrich in Colorado.
Because it also might be like, hey, I was confused by what you're measuring. Like I expected it to be like multiple trials. Like is the way we can, like, because you can only rewrite during the evaluation, the things that are bold on the top.
No, it's the wording on the we worked on this goal. The system is set up so you go into the IEP and you go to the progress monitoring, and then you fill in the we worked on this goal, so you write that in.
But the goal can be.
But when the goals are set, like, you don't have any control over the wording of it.
Yes.
When
When
in the
it's
IEP, when it's written,
When
you
it's
do.
Yeah.
So you could also ask to not be like, you know,
It can be written.
you could also be like, oh, you know, should I rewrite this in the evaluation report to make it easy?
Yeah,
Or, you know,
in the IEP.
Yep.
Yeah.
to make it easier for you.
Yeah.
More quickly, so you can do it really fast.
Yeah.
I know you have a lot of.
Right. Well, then that's one of the things that I want parents to start asking at IEP meetings, annual IEP meetings, is how are you going to track the stakes? Right. And that way they might actually think about it and rewrite the goal so that it's easier to track for them, easier for them to improve the child's ability to do it, right? Because they're going to realize, oh, I've got to do 5 trials in 3 months. I better get that on my calendar. And how am I going to do it? It can't just be, because basically what this is from, this child's in middle school. So in middle school in this county, they do not have pullouts, which means the child gets individualized help in the classroom. So basically, they're doing all of this in the classroom, so they're only using classroom activities to come up with this information versus saying, I need to do something special for this child. I need to put together a list of unknown vocabulary words. I need to give them to them 5 times at least, right? Do this 5 times in the quarter. So without thinking, I think sometimes they write these goals and they haven't thought through what they need to do to make it happen.
Yeah, so you're out there doing it. Yeah, so you could be like, oh, so in the classroom, are you already doing this? Like, is it a flight change? In that case,
right.
Is it a flight change?
So Laura's asking, you could, in case anybody can't hear, that in the IEP meeting, you can say, right, are you already doing this in the classroom? Is this something that's automatically going to happen? Or are you going to have to put extra work into it? And do you have it scheduled to do that? Because they might need to bump up their service hours to be able to do that.
Well, and in the enriched system, you can also make it where you can create graphs, but the only way you could create a graph. So if I was an administrator somewhere and I got this back, I would say, okay, you know, teacher, where's your graph? Well, there's no way to graph this because they don't have particular points. So if they can't graph it, then how can you show me that progress is made? So you can always go back that away too. Like, okay, and you, and you as a parent can also, you know, kind of graph it too and be like, this doesn't look like progress. So.
Sorry.
No, those are great questions. Anybody else have other questions?
Along those lines, are teachers then expected to be keeping notes, or are they putting things in the system that kind of tracks the progress? And so as a parent, could you ask to see like their notes or their tracking?
They should be keeping track of how the child is doing on a regular basis. I don't know if you can ask to see their notes, but you can ask for what they've got, right?
Well, and in the system, when you write the IEP, and you guys will see it before the first goal. Well, this is an enrich, but most IEP systems, all IEP systems have this question, but it might be in a different place. But typically, before the first goal, it will say how often is progress going to be given to the parents. And then there's a drop-down box, and it could be semester, it could be annually, it could be semester, it could be trimester, and it could be quarterly. It could be monthly if it comes to that, but it has to be at least as often as the school does report cards.
So, and I can tell you that most of the districts fight if you push it to be anything but as often as the report cards are given out. But if you have a school that's on semesterly, which I don't think we do, it's almost all quarterly.
Except DPS Elementary is trimester. So you would get it 3 times a year.
Yeah. So you want to know that. And you also, the other thing you can do is ask for updates that aren't progress reports.
Right.
Okay. So, how is my child doing? Do you think their reading has improved? How much do you think their reading has improved? So, and I would do that, when you have parent-teacher conferences, take your goals with you and say, and you're talking to all the teachers, how have you helped my child achieve their IEP goals? And they might be the language arts teacher and go, well, really, I just turn that over to the special ed teacher. I don't do nothing. Well, that's not really what you want to hear. Right?
Well, and you need to talk to the special ed teacher and
Right.
make sure that, that is what they're doing,
Right.
because it could be finger pointing too.
Yeah. Yeah. So, the thing is that it's our job to hold them accountable.
Right.
I think is the biggest thing we're saying. And if you're not seeing any progress being made at home, let's say you have a child with dyslexia and you don't see them reading any higher level books, but they're still stuck at 3rd grade and they're in the 8th grade and that's all they can read is a 3rd grade book, there's a problem.
And you don't want to wait a year
No.
when the next IEP is due to say, hey, my child just lost a year. And then in this situation, the one that's projected, I mean, if I was a teacher and if I was, and if I had these, the definition of words, the unknown vocabulary words, I would enlist the family to help me with that, because the more that the child is exposed to it, the better he or she is going to do. So if this is a particular struggle, which it should be if it's an IEP goal, then of course we want the home and school to be working together.
So in the meeting, you could say, oh, how can I help you
Yes.
get him to where he.
Right. You can ask.
Yep.
Yeah. In the meeting, you can say, look, I'll be happy to review these at home.
Yep.
Ask me how to do it if they think you need, a special approach. You can put it in parent comments that you have requested that. And then when you get back together, I haven't gotten anything from you. Where's my stuff? And it's already documented in the IEP that that's something you want to have happen. Yeah, so that's a good question in terms of, can I help? How do I help? How do I get stuff? And if you're not getting support, if the school isn't giving you things, there's a problem. Typically, you've got parents who, I wouldn't say typically you have parents who don't help. That's not true. You have a lot of parents who help. But some parents they don't have the ability to necessarily be an educator. And so they're better off, let's say it's math. There's a lot of parents who can't do math. So you probably don't want to say, send the work home and let me help the kid, because I don't know how to do it, right? So there's different things. But it could be they could do time tutoring. Right, there could be after school tutoring or time during the day that you can take them or whatever. So you just want to ask, how can I help? How can I help with my child with your school system? There's some schools that have the after school tutoring. Some schools have clinics during the day on certain days where you can go meet with teachers. There's all kinds of stuff, especially middle school and high school. Elementary, there's not much, but middle school and high school, they have quite a bit. Yeah. Any other questions? Those are all great questions. We'll move on then.
Maybe 5 minutes.
Oh, I think we went over all these. Ask for new baseline or new assessment. Make sure they're supporting data. If the goal is met, you got to meet and have another IEP meeting and rewrite the goal. So let's say that the student's supposed to meet the goal in a year and they met it in 6 months. 1, they underestimated what the child could do, and 2, we got to rewrite the goal.
That's a really good teacher.
It's a really good, that's probably it too. That could be. It does happen, often actually. But the thing is, sometimes they don't get around to rewriting the IEP goal. So you have somebody meet their IEP goal in December, and it's not supposed to be updated until September. Well, that's a whole semester you've lost work. So yeah, we've already taken questions. So if there's any other questions, we're happy to take those too. Okay, well, we're going to move on. If you come up with something, again, just yell out at us. So the next part we do is hot topics. So this is where some of your concerns, we can go into them in a little more detail. We have about let's say about 10, well, let's say 15 minutes because we can hang out with Laura.
Yep.
Everybody else is online. So anybody got something that's stressing them out right now, or you want to go back to any of your concerns, navigating the system, 504, what else do we have? Motivation and sleep. So I'm going to go to that one. That was Mary, right? Yeah. Sleep. Do you have a child with ADHD, if you don't mind me asking?
Her teacher thinks that I should have her evaluated for ADHD.
Okay. Does she have a tough time going to sleep at night?
Yes, she does.
Okay. There is, I have an ADHD handout that I have that I can give you on different things, and some of the things that are in there are on sleep. There is a yoga pose you can use that is supposed to really help you go to sleep at night. And it's basically coming up with a routine that works. There's my son liked essential oils. There's one through Young Living called Peace and Calming, and he would put it on his pillow so he could smell it all night long. You want to use a pillowcase you don't care about because you could get a little oil stain on it, but that works. There's also they have diffusers that'll diffuse it in the room, so you can just plug into the wall, so that you don't have to have it on any of the stuff. You can put that in your whole house to calm your house. They're pretty potent. So these are kind of naturalistic ways. There's also a book. It's called, I think it's called Calming the Monkey. I think that's what it's called, but I'm not positive.
I put ADHD handout so you can send
I'll
her
send
the
that. I'm not sure that book is on there, but put the book on there. And it comes with a tape that the child can actually, or now it's probably on a CD or web or whatever, but then it was a tape that you can play, and what's on there is supposed to kind of help them go through the process of going to sleep. And it's for busy minds, to calm down busy minds.
Okay.
I think the biggest thing that we found worked was you got to go to bed and be in your room at the same time as much as possible every night, even if you don't think you're ready.
even on the weekends.
Even on the weekends, which is hard if you got an older kid. As he got older, we let him manage it himself. But younger, we helped. The other thing that I heard from Adoption Exchange in the TBRI class, which stands for Trust-Based Relationship Intervention, which is awesome classes. If anybody, they're great for all kids. Lots of sensory information, how to deal with kids. They recommend some protein before you go to bed. The protein helps you sleep. Peanut butter, eggs, meat, whatever. Anything with protein. Nuts can help you go to sleep. Now, my husband just got told that it's better that if you wake up in the middle of the night to take protein. But, that was from his doctor. So it just depends. So those are some guidance. Does that help, Mary?
Yes, it does. Thank you.
Yeah. Getting them to school in the morning. So if she doesn't go to sleep well, then it's probably hard getting her up. Is that true?
She, some days.
Yeah.
She can be an early riser, but then she hasn't had enough sleep. And very distracted.
Yeah.
Easily distracted.
Yeah. And then by the time the evening wears on, she's a devil. Nicely speaking. Difficult to deal with. So one of the things that we found is to at least help with that process with a kid with ADHD. How old is she?
7.
7. Okay, so one of the things is to get everything done the night before. I know somebody that used to put the kids' shoes in the car because he always forgot them. So before they left the car, they took their shoes off. So they were there the next morning when they got in. Yes, just little things like that. Is she a visual learner?
Yes.
Okay, so that can help. Here's an example. My son could never clean anything. We always had chores. He could never figure it out. We called him the 50-50 kid. He only ever did 50% of no matter what we asked him to do. And if there was no way to break it into 50%, he took all day to do whatever it was. So one of the things he couldn't figure out how to do was to clean his bathroom. Now, by this time, he's about 7 or 8 years old. He'd been cleaning his bathroom since he was 4. You know, not everything, but basically cleaning his bathroom. So finally, I learned that he's a visual learner. Took me a while. So I said to him, I said, okay, imagine your bathroom. We've been to a hotel. He goes, yeah, I like to go to hotels. I go, okay, what's cool about it? Oh, they're clean. I said, what's the bathroom like? He goes, oh, it's like totally clean. I go, okay, make your bathroom look like that. Oh, I can do that. Went and did it. He had an image in his head that he could do. So practicing, we call it practicing. If you didn't do so well this morning, maybe tonight when we get home, we'll practice getting ready for school, especially at 7. Practicing is not a bad thing. And if you practice with me, you get your favorite dessert. Not above bribes. Bribes are always good. So, you know, try some of those kind of things. Does that help?
Okay. Yes, it does.
I loved it when my kids had uniforms. For a while, we went to school that had uniforms. This was in California. And I loved it because we didn't have to argue over clothes every day. But,
Right.
Laura just said she's heard of parents dressing their kids the night before. Yep. But if you have a kid with sensory issues, they won't sleep because it'll
Mess
drive
them up.
They won't. Any other questions? Did we hit on that? Navigating, we got some of that, and I can point you to a webinar you can go to for more information. And 504 we covered. Any other questions that we can help with today?
Motivation to do homework.
Motivation to do homework. Well, that's a good one.
Well, I would say for that, work with the teacher on that. You know, so you know what the homework is too, and then it needs to be like a separated place that is specific for homework. Typically, like not the kitchen table if you can help it. But Laura had brought up, you know, like one of those. She said a quiet box, but you know, somewhere that is just separated, that they associate with that, and then depending on the age of the child, break it down into increments. You know, maybe it's 5 minutes do homework and then do something else, or maybe it's 10 minutes and do something else. So you want those reinforcers built in, unless it's a child that's hard to transition back. That might not work as well. I mean, a lot of times when kids get home from school, they're just famished because they didn't eat because they wanted to go and play with their friends, or you know, they didn't have enough to eat, or whatever reason. So make sure that they eat a lot and drink a lot before they start on that homework. It's kind of that protein thing. You know, make sure that they are nourished and that they are in a good space. And then it's just going through, if you know what the teacher does in the classroom, like one of the classrooms I'm working in right now, it's kind of, they sit down at their desk, they have a little schedule type of thing up there, not a schedule, but it's like, are you ready? Do you have everything you need? You know, do you have the proper equipment? You know, are you ready to ask questions? Do you have your pen and paper? You know, just something like a little checklist that they can go through. What I have found, especially for kids that fidget a lot, do they have their box? Do they have that? So you can take the Velcro and you can do the loopy side and you can put it right under their desk and stick it on right there. And they just may need that little bit of reinforcement.
You can put a rubber band around their chair or a TheraBand, and they can put their feet in it and rock against it or push against it. That gives them something to play with that won't interfere with learning.
And if in their own space, if they can decorate it, the more that the child has a say in, I mean, this is in general for people, the more that people have a say in whatever their space looks like, the more that they will buy into it. And not that it will be wonderful, but the other thing is not only at the same time, but let's say it's 15 minutes or 30 minutes or whatever, then they need to stay there for that amount of time. So because you don't want to encourage them to rush through their homework just to get it done so they can go outside. So if it's like a 30-minute session, then even if they finish in 10 minutes, they still have to stay there. They can read. They can do quiet activities there. They can do, circle a word, something that will keep their brain engaged. And that will help with not having the kid rush through because that happens.
Well, if you have a kid with ADHD or any kind of disability, actually, they're going to have some subjects that they shy away from and they refuse to do the work or they refuse to do the homework, and you want to take note of that. There might be a reason. There might be some kind of issue that they're having. Something happened in the classroom. They didn't like the way the teacher explained it, or when
they don't understand.
They don't understand what the teacher said, and they don't want to ask for help. Or sometimes our kids, by the time they get home, are exhausted.
Yeah.
Kids who have disabilities, they use way more energy than other kids just to make it through the day. So one of the things that you can look at if you have a child on an IEP or 504 is, can you reduce the amount of work that they have to provide? Instead of doing 20 problems, we're going to do every other problem. Or have the teacher pick the 10 most important problems to do. Because sometimes they really don't have the brain power to do that much at night. They've used there's different pockets of energy in your body, and when they get home, they might have exhausted all those pockets. So all they can do is go outside and run around the block. That's all they can do, because that's all that's left to them. And so the waters are important, because as soon as you're thirsty, you've lost 10% of your brain power. The food is important, because again, you're using up all this energy, so you're burning calories faster than most of the other kids. So that's something to think about and to monitor. I think what Barb said is good. I do know that a lot of kids with ADHD do not like being alone.
Right.
So you might have to sit with them, have a study person in the room with them. I call it parallel play. My daughter still does this at 27. She likes to sit by you but not do anything with you. So, they could still sit there and do their work. Or maybe if they got their work done and you set it so 30 minutes, play a game with them. Play Monopoly, play Memory, play anything that uses, there's like a lot of spatial games now that you can play. Pentagrams. Those are all great for their brain. And you're not done. And then it becomes a fun time, right? You can say, well, we're going to do that 10 minutes of work, and then you get to play a game with mommy or whatever. So those are things that you can build into that will make it more motivational. But if you're really having trouble, I would look at why.
Yeah. Okay.
Because my daughter tended to say, I can't do it. Now, it typically meant she had no clue how to start. She had no clue what the first step was. So sometimes it's, okay, so you can ask those kind of questions. What's the first step you need to do? Okay, what does it look like? What's confusing about this? And if it's something that they know how to do, then you can help them say, well, look, remember when we did this? But if it's something that you're like, well, I don't know if I've ever seen them do that, I don't know how to do it either, then you can go back to the teacher or send them an email. New technology is great. Send them an email and say, my kid didn't know how to do this last night, and I couldn't help them.
Yep.
Okay.
Is that
very helpful? That's very helpful. Thank you.
Is there any particular thing that your daughter does that we could possibly help with?
Oh, sometimes it's just a matter of, I don't want to. I'm not going to. I just don't want to.
And some of that comes with being tired.
Yeah, and I guess maybe I haven't appreciated that piece.
It's hard.
That she's putting forth so much effort just to get through the day.
Yep. I was a type A personality engineer at Hewlett Packard. Go, 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 go. My kids came home and said, I can't do this. I go, what do you mean? What do you mean you can't do that? Of course you can do that. We'll sit here for 3 hours until you do it. Not knowing they had no capability of doing it. So you learn these things. Luckily, we're here. We can help you learn them quicker than I learned them. And I was a teacher, but, it's a math teacher on top of it. But there's realizing that my kids came home exhausted helped me so much.
Mm-hmm. That's good to remember.
Yeah, one of the things I did is you come home, you go outside and play first. Go outside and play. Yep. You haven't had the chance to play today. Go be creative. Go find some neighborhood kids and create a sport, whatever. Go play. And then after you play, come in and eat. then if we have homework, we'll do it. Right? So, yeah. And if you can find a school that doesn't believe in homework, that's even better.
Yep,
there are schools out there. Yeah.
Okay.
They're starting to realize that play is very important. But I think if you don't have a school like that, then ask for reduced work.
Okay.
Especially on the topics that seem hard for her to focus on in the evening.
Okay.
The other thing, real quick, I know it's time, isn't it?
Yep.
The other thing, real quick, is when is her best working time? So my son's best working time is like midnight to 4 in the morning. Mm-hmm. My best working time is any other time besides midnight to 4 o'clock. So as he got older, he figured that out. And because of his ADHD, and he had a project due, he would stay up all night to do it. And could go to school the next day and function, and then come home and crash. Yep. Mm-hmm. I couldn't do that, ever. I could sleep 4 hours and then do it, but I couldn't do no sleep. So getting her to kind of figure out when's a good time, I was always better in the morning. Let me just go to bed. I'll get up at 6. I'll do my homework in the morning with my breakfast, which I never ate. And, so finding the time, too, is good for their cycles.
Okay.
Okay? That's
Okay.
it. Any other questions with our 30 seconds we have left?
Well, thanks for joining us. We appreciate that in person and on via the conference call.
Right.
So